What's up, everyone? Staxwell here with Team Perfect Curve. And I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, but there's been a Mech Mage deck list floating around that's been doing really well on both ladder and in tournament. And this is the deck that I personally played for the Fireside Invitational Qualifier. So I thought it'd be fit that I do a little breakdown for you guys. It's been performing extremely well for me. So, I like it a lot. It's a really low curve deck, which I'm a fan of. And it's got 6 1-drops, 2 Clockwork, 2 Cogmaster, 2 mana. These are really the cards that set it apart because they're just so aggressive in their own, and they help you curve out insanely well. 2 Clockwork Gnomes are really good because obviously the spare part it generates is just massive. It has synergy with so many things. Antonitis and Mana Worm are the obvious ones, but outside of that, you can still use those spare parts for so many other things. Like, say you want to reversing switch your Goblin Blast Mage to get out of swipe range or something. So obvious interactions like that. The spare parts are just really good and help you ensure that you use all your mana most efficiently. And that's really what one of the things that makes mechs really good. 2 Cogmasters are also insane. It's almost like a Flame Imp in the aspect of you can just play it and just be so aggressive early on, and that's really the point of this deck. You're always going to be playing the role of the aggressor, so all the 1-drops really help with that again. Mana Worm is also an insane card because it's a 1/3, which helps you out a lot against aggro, and its ability to get bigger and bigger helps you a lot as playing the role of an aggro. So Mana Worm is kind of like a dual usage card, if you will, in the aspect that you can play it defensively and offensively. So Mana Worm's a really good card. Frostbolt gives you the reach you need. It's almost like a quick shot. If you're not playing super aggressive, you play it for the tempo, but if you are, you use it for the reach you need to win. Unstable Portal is also a great card. It helps you keep up your aggression, and it's a win condition in its own because just the natural advantage that it creates. Like if you do it on 2 and then you get a card that you could play for 3 mana, that's just an insane tempo shift. And I think, it could just take the game for you right there, especially if you had a good 1-drop like Mana Worm or Clockwork to complement that. So, Unstable Portal really sets it apart. And I'm playing Mana Worm and Unstable Portal instead of the Scientist engine because it's just a lot better against aggro, and it's a lot better helping you out as the aggro player. I apologize for that. That was my phone. But yeah, as the aggro player, it helps you out a lot because, Entity's not really going to do much for you, and Scientist doesn't create as much pressure as Mana Worm creates. And Entity doesn't... You're not going to copy anything good in such an aggressive format. Like, you don't want to copy Patron, you don't want to copy War Song. So these cards are just in there to help you win fast before Patron can even play, before any deck can play. And if you're playing against aggro, it's the best answer to aggro, I would say, except for Zoo, but we'll talk about that later. Annoyotron is really insane versus any deck because if they're playing aggro, then they have to deal with the double taunt. And if they're not playing aggro, then they can't get to your better creatures without getting past Annoyotron. He's an insane card. Mech Warper, he's kind of... Yeah, he's like the staple of the deck, right? Like, any game, any matchup, any hand, you can beat if you have the Mech Warpers. If sometimes the hands Mech Warper creates are just unstoppable, unbeatable, and I don't think any other hand in the game can really stand up to a Mech Warper hand. Which is, one of the reasons I definitely play Mech. Any matchup's winnable with Mech Warpers. Snow Chugger is a really good card. A lot of players have been dropping War Axe from their Patron builds, which is really good for everyone, because for Mech Mage, because you can now freeze them before they can play their only weapon, which is Death's Bite. So, with the inclusion of this deck in kind of back into the shift of things, I think they're going to start putting War Axe back in their deck. But for the time being, Snow Chugger is really good against them because by the time they get out Death's Bite, it'll be too late and they'll be frozen every turn. And then if they waste an execute on Snow Chugger, then they don't have an execute for Fel Reaver or Boom or one of the cards you need to execute. So if they're executing Snow Chugger, then it's okay. And that's pretty much the only way that they can kill it, unless they want to slam Taskmaster or something like that. But they have to use combinations of cards to get rid of a card that shouldn't matter. It's just a 2-drop, 2 Spider Tank, really good card. And then 1 Tinkertown. I'm going to talk about this for a second. So Spider Tank is a 3-drop 3/4 always, and then Tinkertown is a 3-drop 4/4 maybe, So that's why we're playing 2 Spider Tank and 1 Tinkertown, is because, situationally, Tinkertown is better, obviously, but every time, Spider Tank is good. There's no way Spider Tank is just not good, Unless... if Spider Tank's not good, then Tinkertown's not going to be good. But every time Spider Tank does what he does, and I like him a lot, and he's a mech, so, he's an obvious include. Fireball Obviously it gives you the reach that you need. I apologize for that. It gives you the reach that you need to, kind of close up the game. The whole point of the deck is just control, control the board, go face a lot, very aggressive, and then right when they start to stabilize, you either use Fel Reaver or Fireball to, just kind of lock it up and finish the game. Blast Mage is also a very good card. It got a lot better now. It's good against a lot of the lower curve decks. Like Aggro Pally is a really big card right now, so I'm at a really big deck right now, so Goblin Blast Mage kind of keeps that one in check. It's also good for Zoo. It kind of keeps that in check with all the imps and everything. So, Blast Mage is finding its way back into the scene. It's a really good card still. Yeti is also a very good card, 4-drop, 4/5, that, gets you a spare part. And we already talked about how good spare parts are, so we don't really need to talk too much about Yeti. He's just a really good 4-drop. Shredder is the best 4-drop in the game, I'd say, so, and he's a mech, so he's an obvious include. Fel Reaver is kind of like the card that's like different now from the previous mech lists, and it's just really good because you could start to even race anything like even Face Hunter with Fel Reaver. Fel Reaver answers Giants for the handlock matchup. Oftentimes, then they'll have to trade a Giant into it because they'll be much lower than you are, so they can't race you. They have to control you, and Fel Reaver is a better card to drop just when you're winning, so that way they can't try and just play a bunch of guys and then deck you out. So that's kind of the way. You don't want to play too much to a full board because then they'll just kind of start ignoring Fel Reaver. You shouldn't have to play it to a full board though because your deck is so low curve and everything. You should have control of the board, and that's when Fel Reaver shines, is when you have control of the board and you drop a Fel Reaver. That's kind of unfair a lot. So that's why it's an include in this deck, because you should have the board all the time. So you should be able to drop Fel Reaver to your board all the time, and it should be unfair. And again, it helps you race so many other decks. Aggro and control, it just helps you race everything. A 5-drop 8/8 is just insane, not to mention the Mech Warper value you get off it. Antonitis, it doesn't really fit the theme of the deck too much, but just the spare parts combo with it very well, and it's an auto include because it's a win condition in its own. There's been games where I just lost the board early, didn't draw good, whatever, and then Antonitis has kind of brought me back in the game, and I win games that I shouldn't have business even playing because of Antonitis. It's a really insane card. A lot of times I mill it off Fel Reaver, sadly though, but it is very insane, very powerful card. And then Dr. Boom is also good. This deck plays a lot like Mid-Range Hunter in the aspect, you just want to control and be aggressive early, and then finish him off with the Fel Reaver Fireball. And if that doesn't work, Boom is always your insurance. Boom is a really good card. And the Boom bots it creates are mech, so obvious include. This deck is really strong on the ladder. I've been playing with it. I played the first 2 days with it, and I got to rank 3 no problem. I think I won 30 games straight with it. I'm not even exaggerating. This deck is insane, especially if people don't see it coming. I recommend playing it if a lot of people start with Mech Mage when they first get the game, so it's kind of good to go back, because that's the deck I started with, so it's kind of good to go back to my roots and play a little bit of what I started with, apply my knowledge now to a deck that I used to play. But yeah, anyway, I like it a lot. If you have any questions, comments about the deck, please leave them in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment, rate, subscribe. Head over to our YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. I'll leave all those links in the description below. And until next time, guys, just remember that perfect is not impossible.